So, Macon, you think when this episode comes out that we'll still be in Omaha? I sure hope so.
Would be nice. I think it may happen.
Would be nice. Would be nice. Well, what's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Hope this episode's coming out right now, and we are still in Omaha. Definitely hoping that. But thank you all so much again for tuning in for the 24th episode of Tuffy Talk. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. Please make sure again, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, follow us, check us out on Twitter at Tuffy Talk Now. Bang, and please like this video and check out other great content as well. So on this week's episode, we're actually going to be having a two-part series with Justin Williams from the Wolfpacker, where we're going to be talking football, basketball, baseball, NC State athletics overall. It's basically doing a whole thing, splitting up into a two-part series. So part two will come out next week. So with that being said, let's go and get this thing started. What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much again for tuning in. We got today here with us Justin Williams from the Wolfpacker. Before we get right into it, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Flightlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered with agents in 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flightlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flightlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flightlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. So again, Justin, thank you so much again for joining us, my friend. Hope you're doing well.
Thanks for having me, guys. Again, am I the first repeat guest on Tuffy Talk, or has somebody?
You're just constantly a trendsetter, Justin, is what it is.
Oh, thank you. What's my prize for being the first recurring guest?
I might have to get you a hat. Or something.
Well, I already got a hat.
He's already got one.
You got one.
So
yeah, so
that's what I'm talking about.
Do I earn friend of the show title yet?
I would
sure,
say
yeah.
Okay.
I would say we feel confident enough to bring you on maybe again in the future. Let's put it that way.
Appreciate it, guys, and thanks for having. And before we forget, because I forgot the first time I was on, I gotta plug my site, thewolfpacker.com. Go visit us at thewolfpacker.com and use that promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis. As you guys know, I'm sure you guys keep very active on social media. It's been a crazy month of recruiting for the football team ever since the dead period was lifted June 1st. The visits have been rolling in, the summer camps are going on, and there's been 5 commitments in the first 2 weeks of June. So good reason to use that premium code, just because you get the recruiting intel as these guys are fully tuned into the recruiting scene. You gotta start from the beginning.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But it's going really well for Dave Dorn and that coaching staff right now. They're really hot on the recruiting trail at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of keep along with that, so we'll kind of, because again, basically today's episode, we're going to kind of just talk about a couple of different sports, talk about some of the highlights since we're getting close to the end of the athletic year per se, and just kind of review a little bit. So one of the questions which I wanted to ask, which I thought was a funny thing. So right now, actually, in the class of 2022 ACC team rankings, there's NC State's actually 4th, Clemson is 5th, and then UNC is 7th. Which, I mean, I know there was somebody.
Let's just call it a day right there.
There was somebody actually tweet out saying, "Take a screenshot of this and hold on to this." And so, I mean, I guess I wanted to kind of ask you, Justin, and make you kind of follow up. How long do you think we're going to hold on to that lead for?
Wait, so didn't one of you guys tweet that, or? I thought one of you guys tweeted. No? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, then I'm mistaken. I did see the tweet today, and yes, that is interesting. It's still early.
Yeah, no, it's early.
But, I mean, who knows? I will say this. This is the most momentum NC State has had on the recruiting trail since their success in 2017 and 2018.
That's
and
right.
It's because of the 8-4 season in 2020. It's because of the record-setting 7 ACC wins. I mean, there's so many things involved in recruiting, but like anything, we tend to overanalyze these things. And you know what the key recipe for success on the recruiting trail is? It's winning.
It's winning.
Mm-hmm.
Because these athletes want to go to programs where they can win and they can compete at the highest level and maybe have a chance to reach the peak in the postseason.
Yep.
So, last season's success really helped. And to answer your question, I mean, yes, the Clemsons of the world are going to pass NC State
eventually.
And I would probably suspect that North Carolina will pass NC State at some point. But, from the get-go, I mean, Carolina and State have been, pretty comparable to date. Now, Carolina's in the end is probably going to be in the run for more, maybe 4-star type talent guys, maybe even a couple 5-stars. Who knows? They're kind of in that ballpark now. But NC State is very smart in who they target. And I can tell you that the sense of excitement around the program from the in-state recruits, the pipeline, if you will, that is crucial to a program like NC State, that excitement is back. And it wasn't necessarily there in 2020, even though NC State ended up having a pretty darn good 2020 class, all things considered. But their excitement was kind of at bay because of that 4-8 season, because of some uncertainty within the program. 1 year later, an 8-4 season changes everything. Dave Dorn and the assistant coaching staff all get contract extensions through 2025. And that gives these kids reassurance that, if they sign up to come to NC State, there's not going to be a coaching change in the middle of their stay at NC State. And, that always creates turmoil. So that's never what a recruit wants. But
no.
Yeah, I was going to say, see guys, that's the kind of content you get at the Wolfpacker right there. That kind of in deep breakdown right there. You're not going to find that anywhere else.
That's right.
So,
appreciate it, Bacon.
Yeah, there you go. See, a shameless plug right there for you. But it's no, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, it's this. I will say, to kind of answer your question directly, it ain't going to last long. The league ain't going to last long. I did see an article somewhere. And again, I don't know who put it out there. Might have been another site, but it was just a statement saying that it's been a down year on average, I think, for commits for the universities, for schools in the country in general. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's attributed to people just still kind of getting geared back into the swing of things from COVID or what, but it does seem like it's a little bit lower. But I'm excited about what State's doing on the recruiting trail too. Like I think more than Leighton, I follow that side of things. I try to follow a little bit harder. Since I even started going to college, I have, and I've what I've understood is that this class is going to be a little bit of a smaller class, but it's going to generally allow the coaches and the staff to be able to target more who they want, and obviously that they got it has to be a two-way street. They have to want to be here as well, but they're going to be able to target more and prioritize more. Whereas maybe in the past, other years, maybe in future years, they'll kind of have their attention kind of more spread out, a little bit wider. This net's a little bit smaller, so they can focus their attention on a little bit more. And it's I'm excited about it. The guys they've already brought in, I think they've got like 6 or 7 guys already committed, and maybe like another 8 or 10 or 11 or so still left to go. I think it's going to be a pretty good class. There's already some headliners on there. If you guys can, I'm sure you can find out all the information at the Wolfpacker too. So
yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, I think it's been an exciting class. And I think it's been a class where it's like almost like business as usual, where it's not like, whoa, like, we got these guys. It's like, yeah, no, I mean, this is what we expect. This is what we want. This is what we want it to be like for years to come. So, and then
Macon, one last, I wanted to say you were spot on about this class in 2021 being a little bit behind schedule, just because of the impacts of COVID, but also the uncertainty of the scholarship counts because of the free year of eligibility that the NCAA granted to fall athletes in 2020, and then continued on with winter and spring athletes. But because of that whole carryover, roster sizes are bigger than they've ever been this season, and they will be for the next 3 seasons as that generation that got that free year of eligibility kind of phases out. But because of that, there's kind of that middle ground of talent, which, might be borderline Power 5 in most years. They're probably going to play a step down just because there's not as many scholarships to give out because of that uncertainty of the scholarship count. So you're exactly right. At this time, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I saw a tweet that was referring to along the lines of what you were looking at. And there were about half the number of commits at the same time this year as there were last year. So
Right.
Exactly. Great point you made, and a good reason why, NC State's able to be a lot more selective in this class too. So this is going to be a lean and mean class.
Yeah. And I was going to add this too. Right now is generally the time of year, I know in particular, State really likes to capitalize on the recruiting trails, camp season.
Yep.
They've been going on for I think now it's like the second week or the third week.
Yeah, this upcoming weekend will be the third and final week of the summer camps.
Right, and that's when it's a great time to have kids that they have seen, that they can get back on campus for either official or unofficial visits, and then also get to see guys they may never have seen before. Get new players always in front of them. I know they have. I think this weekend's a big 7-on-7 tournament. What I saw somewhere, so that's it's a big time for State, but that might be why State is slightly ahead too, because they like to capitalize this time of year. So, but
yeah,
100%.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of ask one more football question before we move on to another sport. So I do think one of the big things this year that I think is really exciting is, so you look at the quarterback room. You got Devin Leary starting. You got Ben Finley, Ryan Finley's brother, who, again, looked super impressive in the spring game, super impressive to, get, dinged up like he did, and then, come back and throw really well with the second stringers. And then you got Aaron McLaughlin, who's coming in as a true freshman, and, he's going to develop and eventually I'm sure be a stud for us. And then you got MJ Morris committed to us as a 4-star in the 22 class. And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, that's possibly 4 guys that, maybe not right now, but give them a little bit of time, all startable at the Division I, Power 5 level. And you think back and you go, when was the last time maybe we had something similar to this? And the only thing I can really think of is when we had Russell and Mike Glennon on at the same time. Those are 2 stud quarterbacks that we had at the exact same time. But you have 4 potential big ones. And so you kind of think maybe this is a movement kind of towards that more elite direction that we're looking at, to say, if God forbid Leary were to go down, we have somebody that we, still feel pretty good about and behind us. And then even a little bit behind that as well. So I want to kind of ask you, Justin, first, do you agree that this is kind of it shows that we're taking a step in the right direction?
It's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
It's certainly building upon the reputation that NC State has rightfully earned in quarterback university, QBU. And I think you're seeing a continuation of that past success. It's easier to sell a quarterback when you can say Phillip Rivers played here, Russell Wilson played here. Those are 2 future Hall of Famers.
Yeah, see their names up in the stadium. See, look at the names right there.
Yeah.
Right. That sells. That is a huge selling point. And just because there may have been some dips along the way, if you really think about it, NC State's quarterback situation the past 20 years, there's not a lot of schools that can say they've had that type of continued success and that type of future pro level type success. So it's a great problem to have. I'm curious to see how it all plays out, because it all depends on how long Leary's college career ends up being. He's a redshirt sophomore this year. So, technically if he absolutely tore it up this fall, he could technically be draft eligible. He's not on any draft boards at the time being. So this is a very potential type situation. He's got a lot more to prove because, I think Devin Leary is a very talented quarterback, and I'm excited to see what he does this fall. I think the thing with him is just we don't know exactly what he is because the sample size isn't large enough. He had his 4 or 5 starts his freshman year, a true freshman type situation, or rather redshirt freshman situation. But in a year where he was the 3rd option and the season was already kind of lost and he was really raw. And then he comes in for 3 starts in 2020 and he looked dang impressive against Pittsburgh and, leading that game-winning drive to beat a then-ranked team in Pittsburgh. Arguably one of Dave Doran's best wins to date. I don't know if it's, top 2 or 3, but it's certainly top 5 or 10. And he had 334 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. We're talking about a type of performance that, was among the best of the past 10 years from any NC State quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
the next two starts weren't those type of numbers. It wasn't that type of performance, but you could see the wheels were turning in that direction. Really solid first half against Virginia on the road last year. Then the Duke game, State comes out sluggish. Duke comes out to an early lead. And then you could see Devin Leary was starting to build that momentum. He was starting to look good. And then he gets hurt. And then he breaks his leg and the season is over. So we just don't know what Devin Leary is going to be. I think there's a ton of potential. And the fact, you add in the fact that he's in his second year under offensive coordinator Tim Beck.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
They didn't even get a spring last year. They were like us on Zoom learning an entire new offensive system. And that can only go but so far. So they made the best of it last year. It was a very impressive offensive performance in Tim Beck's debut season in Raleigh. However, year two, I would raise those expectations because they're able to get in person in spring and have all this valuable time so that he can thoroughly understand the offense and know the why behind what everything he's doing. So, but then to answer your question with the backups at the situation, Ben Finley's really solid quarterback. You could see, like you mentioned, there's 4 guys that are going to be in that room that you could see as ACC caliber starting quarterbacks. Good situation to have, good problem to have. It's going to create competition. Iron yields iron, or iron sharpens iron, rather. I butchered that phrase, but I know Dave Dorn likes using it, and he's right. And we'll see. We'll just see how the timelines end up. There's a possibility that, look, if you've got 4 talented quarterbacks, they're all going to want to play. And if they're on the same timeline, it wouldn't shock me to see a transfer in the next 2 seasons or so. That should be probably expected. But that's a good situation to have because that means that somebody beat them out for that job. So,
right.
Yeah, they're in great shape in the quarterback room. Couldn't be better.
Yeah. And for your point, the cream will rise to the top. So if you got all this talent in there, generally around the 4-star QB level talent coming out of high school, then if you get one that comes out of there, that's a really solid option. If you at least got 1, maybe 2 guys out of a room of 4, 4-star QBs. Obviously when they get on campus, the stars kind of go out the window and there's a whole different level. I think you've even heard at times Aaron McLaughlin talk about how, it's been a lot of learning. Like people use the phrase like drinking out of the fire hose. It's like totally different ball game, so to speak. Go figure, going from high school to college. So I was looking at this though. To your point, I think one thing you also added too was a couple things. You made the comment how Leary last season he gets a whole off season. I don't think people realize how last season he didn't have a full year to learn the offense. He had like a short window of time, and was able to do what he did. I think he came in the spring, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he came in the spring and had the spring and the summer and fall, and that was it. But he didn't really have a whole, kind of came in. I think that was right. Just basically came in, didn't basically have a whole bunch of time.
Are you talking about last off season?
Yeah.
Well, spring was canceled. They started 2 or 3 days into it, but then coronavirus canceled everything.
That's right.
And then in fall camp, Leary, if I'm not mistaken, got COVID too, or had COVID contact tracing or whatever. So he was out for 2 weeks as well. So,
that's right. He had basically a 3-week quarantine, which delayed his condition to the point where they sat him for the week, the season opener against Wake Forest. And then Bailey Hockman played so well in that game. The obvious decision was to go with Bailey Hockman in game 2. Didn't work out. Then it was Leary's time. And then we go to week 5 and then there's the leg break.
Yeah.
Right. But I was going to just make this point though. What I think is interesting, everybody's giving, and some regard, rightfully so, Sam Howell, like this hype train. Anytime UNC ever has a glimmer of success, it's like we're just going to jump on that hype train and ride that thing hard. Side note, it kind of blows my mind that both Carolina and State finished with the same record and both lost a bowl game. Granted, Carolina went to the Orange Bowl and lost, I think, Texas A&M. But they sat that 8-4 record, and so did State. But yet they're ranked preseason number 7 going into the 2021 season. I think losing about 4,000 yards of offense, being their 2 starting running backs and 2 starting receivers. That's just a thought I have. We can talk about that later. But it's just blows my mind. Yeah. But my whole point was to what you're talking about the QB room and Devin Leary. And I saw this stat, and I think I made a lot of rounds, but I saw someone say, who are these QBs? And it said QB number 1. I believe this was I saw this. I'm looking back up. This is a tweet that was put out October 4th of last season. So week 4, week 5. QB number 1, 39 for 60, 520 yards, 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. QB number 2, 40 for 60, so 1 more completion for the same number of attempts, 501 yards, so 19 less yards than QB 1, but 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Which would you take? And the whole who is it basically? And the whole point was QB 1, Sam Howell, QB 2, Devin Leary. And you could argue in the first part of his season with not anywhere near as much time as Sam Howell may have had to learn the offense, Devin Leary had a better stat line. Now, granted, he had 19 less yards than Sam Howell at that point in time. And Devin Leary did break his leg, like we mentioned. Mm-hmm. But he had 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Howell had 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and we're just going to say people just want to dismiss, Leary's nowhere near the quarterback that Sam Howell is. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know. I mean, the numbers are kind of there up until he broke his leg. So to me, is Leary that good? Is Sam Howell maybe not as good as we think? Is it a little bit of both? I just think there's a credit to what the kind of talent we have with Devin Leary. What a treat it is to have him as our quarterback. He just underrated, in my opinion, going into the season.
Yeah.
Macon, are you an attorney?
No.
That was a great argument you made. I mean,
well, I will say my mom did say when I was younger that she said, "You argue really well, son, so you should be a lawyer."
I mean, but I didn't want to stop you. It was a treat to listen to. I will say this. That may have been a good tweet. Sample size the same. You caught Sam Howell probably on a bad stretch. Sam Howell's a great quarterback.
He is a great quarterback.
First round, probably a top 10 quarterback. I do have my hesitations about Carolina next season, but do not underestimate the Tar Heels. That is going to be a tough game. And Sam Howell is a very special talent. We don't know about Devin Leary. That's the thing. Like, Sam Howell went on to have his
a little bit. We kind of know a little bit, though, right?
We know a little bit. But I'm just saying that NC State fans should just temper the expectations for the quarterback situation. Because I will say this. I think he's, no matter what, going to be an improvement from Bailey Hockman. I think Bailey Hockman was a limited quarterback who was a good offensive manager that helped NC State have a successful season. Because without Bailey Hockman, State's not going 8-3 in the regular season. So they needed that experienced guy to fill in that role. But we just don't know, the whole story with Devin. He could be underrated. I think it's just there needs to be a larger sample size. With Howell, he had a historic freshman season as a true freshman.
Yeah,
so, we got
100%.
2 full seasons of him.
Right, and that's fair. That's fair too. I'm not saying that I think Devin Leary is going to be the greatest quarterback kind of thing. I think it's just I think it kind of surprises me how many people just totally disregard Devin Leary right now. And it's like, before he broke his leg, he had Sam Howell had 1 more season than he did, but to that point in the season, I was just my point was kind of look at Devin Leary go. Like he's maybe better than we thought he was going to be, and I don't know. I just look at that as kind of maybe he's not too far off from Sam Howell. That's all I'm kind of getting at.
It's also tough because he's in a tough neighborhood. The ACC is stacked with great quarterbacks. Yeah. So, it's possible that Devin Leary, if he has a great season, he could be the 5th or 6th best quarterback in the ACC, and that'd still be fantastic. And NC State
exactly.
Fantastic season.
Yeah.
No, I think it kind of summarizes nicely by the some time ago I tweeted out a cartoon from the the King of the Hill episode, and it's said those kids would be very upset if they could read that or whatever, and it was having De'Ara King, Sam Howell, and the kid was holding up the sign saying Devin Leary is a top 5 quarterback, and I think kind of that's kind of goes to your point, basically saying how stacked the ACC is this year, but also too how again we haven't seen much of Leary, but from what we have seen, you got to feel super confident about it for sure. But definitely the only expectation or only hope is that during this offseason that Coach Avon has come at least once or twice to teach Leary how to slide. Just make sure that that's locked in. So,
well, I actually interviewed him the other day for a profile I'm writing for the football preview that we do for the Wolfpacker magazine. If you're
which is great, by the way, it is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, if you're a Wolfpack Club member, you get the magazine. So it's a perk of joining the Wolfpack Club. Then you get the Wolfpacker magazine. And you get to read what I have to write, which was about Devin Leary in this case. And he jokes all the time, apparently, that the injury was half my fault because I couldn't. I mean, that was a pathetic baseball slide, and I guess they joke about it and watch the video back. But I mean, he's had a really good mentality about the rehab. And last thing on the football team, because I know we probably want to get on to other topics, but there's tons of reason for excitement. And a huge reason I have for optimism about Leary is that he's got a lot of guys around him. He's got a lot of weapons. I mean, you've got all your receiving core back. You've got all your running backs back. The skill talent is certainly there.
And the chemistry.
We'll see what if the offensive line can just be average to slightly above average, which I think it could be. And there's obviously a couple great talents in Ikem Ekwonu and Grant Gibson on that offensive line. The rest is unknown. But all things considered, Leary's going to have a great supporting cast. So it should be a really fun fall.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we got to talk about baseball here. I mean, obviously,
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at the time of recording, so this episode will come out probably. So this episode will come out on Tuesday, but we recorded it the Wednesday before. So again, this is before they started at Omaha. So hopefully, by the time this recording starts, by the time this episode is aired, we're still in Omaha. Let's put it that way. So hopefully we won at least one of the first 2 games. But so I definitely got to, ask you, Justin, as simple as it comes. How surprised were you that state baseball made it to Omaha, even after particularly losing 21-2 in the first game against Arkansas? I mean,
or were you surprised at all?
I mean, were you even shocked?
Well, I knew going into this series with Arkansas that, NC State had an uphill battle. I mean, Arkansas was the number 1 team in the country. They went through the entirety of the SEC schedule, which is the best conference in college baseball for those not in the know. They didn't lose a single series all season. Mm-hmm. So to think that all of a sudden they were going to lose a series with all the marbles on the table, there was a reason that Arkansas was a heavy favorite. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea of what type of favorite they were, the Vegas odds for that series going into it, NC State was plus 500, Arkansas was minus 900. That means if you bet $100 on NC State, you'd profit $500.
You'd walk away with $600.
And if you bet on Arkansas, you'd have to bet $900 to win $100. That's how much of a favorite they were. Mm-hmm. So it was basically assumed that Arkansas was going to advance out at Super Regional. And then when they win 21-2 on the first day, I mean, not looking good. But Elliott Avent made a really smart move when things weren't going Reed Johnson's way in game 1. He didn't use his limited bullpen because that's the kryptonite of this NC State team. Is it's got reliable pitchers, but not many of them. 5 to be exact. Yep. And when you've got one of them on the mound, when you're getting hammered in Fayetteville in front of the toughest crowd in the country, then you've got 4 and you've got 2 days left. You need to save those arms. So they went to the younger arms, less experienced arms that just weren't ready for that moment. I mean, that was a tall task to ask of any freshman to just throw them into the super regionals in front of that crowd. I mean, that crowd is like a football crowd. Like it's not like, like I'm not knocking NC State's environment or anything, but we think of a baseball game.
Baseball, baseball, it's all good. Well, I think everybody recognizes that our ballpark is nowhere near anybody else's, and therefore the atmosphere is notably different. Although good energy, notably different.
That's like that's a AAA like caliber stadium that Arkansas is playing in. They dump a
like
ton of money.
is it like going to Durham Bulls kind of?
Basically, yeah. I mean, the Bulls have one of the nicest minor league ballparks in the country, so that's kind of a tough comparison. But it's on that level. Like there are AAA teams that don't have as nice of a stadium as Arkansas. So to get to the point, I mean, I wasn't surprised after they won that second game. I thought it was anybody's ball game in game 3. The thing was Kevin Kopps was this unhittable pitcher going into that series, and they didn't even have to use Kopps on day 1, and they only had to use him for 2 innings on day 2. And then they go with them for the start in day 3. I just think Arkansas got greedy with Kopps. See, they just left him in the game too long, and you could tell the wear and tear was starting to get to him in the 8th inning when, some of the NC State lineup was starting to put the barrel on the ball, and they sent a couple shots to the warning track. It was still 2-2 at that point. But then to leave Kopps in, I mean, I think his career high pitch count before that game was like in the 80s.
It was 90s. It was 90.
Yeah, 90 something. He was at a pitch count of 117, 18 heading into the 9th inning. And on his 118th and final pitch, Jose Torres takes him yard to left center.
Cranked one out of there.
That was the eventual game winner. But no, what NC State did, I mean, they deserve all the praise that they're getting and more because, I mean, it would have been like, to give a basketball comparison, it would have been like if they were in the Sweet 16 as a 12 seed. Like they got in the tournament, they played their way into the tournament. They weren't like a super high seed or anything. I mean, State was a 2 seed and they're borderline 1. So I guess maybe they were the 5 seed in this situation. But then they upset Gonzaga, who hadn't lost all season. It would have been like that would have been a comparable type of situation
at Gonzaga Stadium, at Gonzaga's arena. It would be the comparison.
No, good.
After getting crushed the first game.
Yeah. I mean, truly miraculous, and it just I wrote a column about it. It exudes every positive part of Wolfpack culture in the sense of the don't give up, don't ever give up mentality of Jim Valvano and Kay Yao. I mean, there's just so much. The best parts of NC State's athletic history and tradition is based on perseverance and, relentless, determination to just get NC State plays the underdog role well. 1983 championship. Look at this I mean, this is going to be something that's talked about for a long time, and we'll see what NC State can do in Omaha because it would be a real icing on the cake if they, look, the fact that they got here is an accomplishment in and of its own and should be absolutely celebrated. But we'll see. I mean, they're a red hot team and they just took down number 1. So who's to say they can't take down anybody else?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be afraid of anybody after beating Arkansas. I mean, it's like if we can beat them, I mean, does Stanford really scare you compared to Arkansas? I mean, Stanford's good, but are they Arkansas? I don't know. I don't think so. I think another bracket who's at Arizona and I can't remember who the other team is. Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, I think Vanderbilt's the betting favorite to win the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
Do they really scare you? I think Vanderbilt may scare you more than Arizona does. But again, compared to Arkansas, you just beat the number 1 team in the country twice on the road after getting crushed 21-2 to go to the College World Series against one of the most unhittable pitchers ever in college baseball history. I mean, I saw this stat that someone put out on a tweet this weekend that said, I can't remember who it was. It said that Arkansas has scored 28 runs in this series. 28 runs. State had scored 11. And State is going to the College World Series while Arkansas is going to stay at home.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's crazy when you think about that. And it's just State keep fighting with it. I think the statement you made, Justin, about how State is like the best part of State is all about the perseverance and all that. That's a great quote. I mean, a great quote you just had there. It is. It's just like I know State's one of the underdog. I think the only lower tier underdog is the going tournament is Virginia, maybe.
No, State. They have the longest odds.
I thought they were like second or so, second to last.
It's like State's plus 1,200, then Virginia's plus 1,400, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, either way, my whole point is it's kind of like, well, are we surprised? Like it's kind of like we've been there our whole lives, kind of thing. It's okay. if we can get it, it's like, what do we have to lose at this point? Other teams have higher expectations. The pressure's more on them.
Yeah.
I think State getting there, it's going to, I mean, again, they just beat the number 1 team in the country. They're not really scared of anybody.
No.
And granted, the other teams probably aren't either, but State's hitting as good as any team in the country. And their pitching has been good enough.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested. I will say this, though, like you made a point too, Justin. Where would you say this Arkansas series ranks in sports? Because, again, I mean, that's a pretty tall task to be able to say, I watched NC State baseball knock off the number 1 team in the country twice to go to the College World Series on the road in their ballpark with one of the most unhittable pitchers ever.
Before you answer that question too, because like you kind of think of like 1983, like with Virginia, their
Ralph
big time
Sampson.
center, which I'm totally skipping on his name right now.
Ralph Sampson.
Ralph Sampson. Like same thing with him. Like you kind of look at maybe Cops. It's kind of like the 83 Ralph Sampson is like, oh, you're not going to beat that guy. That dude's you can't stop that guy. And then they beat him twice. So technically we beat Cops twice. Technically.
Well, I was just waiting for the ESPN broadcast to start debating whether MJ or Kevin Kopps was the GOAT.
Oh my gosh, dude. I put this out there on our account. I think they had one fact sheet they read off for every single commentator for 3 games. It's like, did you know Min Sheik was from the Czech Republic? It's like, yes, I did. Yes, I've heard it like 20 times already.
Well,
did you know Kopps?
The dirty little secret of the industry is that they're not covering these teams all season, so they have a fact sheet and they stick to it clearly. And
well, yeah,
clearly.
There's a lot of talking in baseball.
It got old. It's like there's other great players in this game besides the one amazing pitcher. I mean, he deserves all the accolades he's going to get. Probably is going to win the Golden Spikes Award, and probably should. But there's other great players, even on Arkansas's team, that you could talk about just as much, possibly. So if it didn't happen.
I haven't heard of any of them because they didn't talk about them. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Wolfpack Nation. Sorry to cut you off there. Obviously, I know that you want to see the rest of it. But again, I mean, just the conversation was so great that we just had to keep going, and we couldn't just keep it to a 40-minute episode. I'm sure I know you were enjoying it, making. I know State fans are definitely going to want to tune in for that.
It's like a teaser, man. I just want to know what comes next.
Exactly. So thank you all so much again for tuning in, and thank you as well to our sponsors, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group. Make sure to go check them out, and again, all their information is in the video description below. But once again, please make sure to subscribe to our channel by hitting the button in the bottom right hand corner. Please like this video. Check out other great content. Follow us at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. And please make sure to tune in next week for part 2. Y'all definitely don't want to miss it at all. So thank you all so much. As always, go Pack.